Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Monday, the start of another week, the start of another big week for Arsenal. 2 home games coming up in the next 6 days, one of them on Wednesday night, that all-important game in hand that we've had for an awful long time. Everton, the visitors to the Emirates, second game against them in fairly quick succession after that 1-0 defeat up at Goodison Park on Sean Dyche's first game in charge. Hopefully this one on Wednesday is slightly different to how that all panned out at Goodison Park. That was probably right up there of Arsenal's worst performance of the season, if not their worst performance of the season. And yeah, hopefully no repeat this time around. Arsenal going into it on the back of 2 really good away games. You think positive? They would have given a really positive confidence boost ahead of the game on Wednesday night, having come back the way they did against Villa, and then secure a very comfortable away win at Leicester City, which it was, although it was 1-0. Really dominant away performance up at Leicester. You hope they'll go into the game against Everton really full of confidence. So we'll speak about that in this video. We'll look at some of the key things ahead of that game. Trossard's role from Saturday's game. Will he play a similar sort of position this Wednesday night? We'll have a look at Jorginho or Partey, who starts, Gabriel as well. But first of all, just quick thank you, everyone. 3rd birthday of this YouTube channel. I noticed it yesterday. It flagged up on my content studio. 3 years old. Who would have believed it? It's flown by, and incredible to be sitting here now with 82,000 whatever it is subscribers, and I think it was like 30 million video views in that time. I looked at the analytics yesterday when I saw it flash up that it was the 3rd birthday of this channel. So look, I've said it before, say it all the time, just thank you very much for all the support you give me on this channel, and the fact you actually want to sit down and watch me rattle on the way I do. It doesn't go unnoticed, believe me, because you could all just press that switch off button, but clearly you don't, and I really appreciate you for that. So thank you very much, and let's talk about this game on Wednesday night. Such a massive one for Arsenal. Like I said, going into it on the back of those 2 away games, can they back that up? They need to back it up. This is their opportunity. This is their game in hand. Can go 5 points clear of Manchester City with victory on Wednesday night, open up that gap, and go into the game against Bournemouth at the weekend really in a positive mindset. It's a massive game. Arsenal were awful at Everton. We know that away game. I think there was lots of factors involved in that. I mean, I think Everton would have beaten most teams the way that game panned out and the way the atmosphere was. The fact it was Dyche's first game, it all worked against Arsenal. But having said all that, they were poor, and they're going to need to play better than that. It looks like there might not be Dominic Calvert-Lewin for Everton for the game. I think that's going to be a big thing for them. You would think, I said it in yesterday's video, just because he's that target man, he's that outball, he's a guy that they can just get the ball out when they're under pressure, and he can hold it up with a bit of strength with his back to goal and just give them a little bit of breathing space, bind them some time. If he's not there, if it's going to be a Mopé or someone like that, and we know what Mopé does, he'll try and get under defender's skin, but he doesn't have that quality in terms of pumping the ball long for him, and I think that could be a big thing for Arsenal. It's some big decisions for Mikel Arteta to make ahead of that game. He made some at the weekend. Obviously Trossard played as that false 9. He rested Nketiah. Trossard played very well. I think Martinelli played pretty well as well because of that, because the sort of movement of Trossard and the way they could drift in and out of positions, those two. We saw that lead to the goal when it was Trossard who sort of went out to the left. It was Martinelli who went through the centre, and Trossard played him in. Martinelli scored. And you wonder what Mikel's going to do for this one. Is he going to bring Eddie Nketiah back in? I doubt it. I think when you look at how Eddie struggled in the game against up at Goodison Park, and the sort of defence that Everton have, the giants they have, the way they play, I think Mikel might look at it and think, you know what, we didn't really drag them out of position at Goodison Park. If Trossard's playing in that false 9 role and he can swap positions with Gabriel Martinelli, that is possibly going to just shake things up a little bit, give the centre-backs a bit of something else to think about, and they could then get dragged out of position because one of them will kind of follow Trossard. If he drifts over to the left, Martinelli can run into the space that's sort of vacated by that, and I kind of feel like that's the way he's going to go. Plus Trossard played very well at Leicester. It's hard to drop someone when they've played that well. He's very unlucky not to score. Look, he did score. It was a really good finish. Obviously, it was ruled out because of the foul by Ben White, but it was a really good finish by Trossard, and he got the assist as well. He'll be very confident. I'd just be surprised if he's going to make any change. I think if you're going to bring Nketiah back, you probably do that at the weekend against Bournemouth, which is going to be a bit of a different game because you just know what you're going to get from Everton. Away from home, they're going to pack that they're going to pack that defence. All giants of a team as well. We know that. And we saw how much Eddie Nketiah struggled against that sort of setup at Goodison Park. It's going to be different. It's at the Emirates, of course. It's not going to be as easy for Everton just to do that. They're going to be under constant attack from Arsenal, you would think. But I think the way Trossard played, the role he played in that game against Leicester and how it all panned out, I think is very, very surprising if he doesn't start again. But let me know what you guys think. What do you reckon Mikel to do when it comes to that front line against Everton? Do you think stick as it was against Leicester, or do you think Eddie Nketiah needs to come back in? Let me know, of course, in the comments below. Okay, the other big decision is what do you do at central midfield? Now, this was always, and it has been for such a long time, just normally such an easy decision. If Thomas Partey's fit, Thomas Partey plays. End of story. It still pretty much is that situation. I'm not saying it's changed that much by the arrival of Jorginho, but it just gives you that little option where if you're a little bit worried about Thomas Partey's fitness, for example, against Leicester, yes, he went up there, yes, he got past fit right at the last minute, but you don't want to just rush him back in. We've seen what's happened with Partey in the past when he's rushed back in early. He's aggravated the injury again, and suddenly he's out for even longer. Whereas before, sometimes you might have to rush Partey back early because you don't really have that option, that quality option who could come in and replace him. Now you do in Jorginho. We've seen that in the last couple of games. Excellent Aston Villa, who's very good bowl accounts against Leicester as well. And I think that just frees you up to just take your time a little bit with Thomas to rotate things. Of course, you've got so many games coming up now. This is the start of such a huge period for Arsenal in terms of midweek matches. We've got Wednesday night, then we've got Saturday, then it's the Europa League after that, Thursday, Saturday, Thursday. It's all going to really start kicking off again for Arsenal. And the fact that you've got these two players in Trossard and Jorginho, where you can rotate, you can change things up, just points back to the January transfer window and how important that's going to be. We know they weren't the first targets, but they were still very, very good targets. Arsenal have got them, they've improved the squad, and they're reaping the benefits of that right now. It's going to be really interesting to see what Mikel does when it comes to Jorginho or Partey on Wednesday night. I think Partey is absolutely still first choice, no doubt about it. If you know, in the big games, Partey's there and he's very fit and available, you know that Thomas Partey is going to start. But if there is any slight doubt about his fitness, if you want to ease him back, as Arsenal are doing at the moment, then you don't really have that nervousness that maybe you did have before, because Jorginho's been there, he's done it, he's shown his great quality since he's been at Arsenal, and it just allows you that little bit of extra breathing space, doesn't it, when it comes to making sure Thomas Partey is 100% fit. Personally, I've got a feeling we'll probably see Jorginho start again on Wednesday night, and then we'll see Thomas Partey come back into the starting lineup for the weekend, and then we'll see Jorginho on the Thursday night in the Europa League. And I think that's how, if everyone stays fit, that's how it will then go as the season progresses. It'll be Partey in the Premier League, Jorginho in the Europa League. But I just think for now, as in this week, moving that aside, I just think the way Jorginho's playing, the way that we know that Arsenal got a game on Saturday and then the Europa League starts, it just feels like the most likely scenario for me is it'll be Jorginho this week on Wednesday night, then you bring Partey back in, and then you get into that rhythm of Jorginho on the Thursday night, Partey at the weekend in the Premier League. So that's how I think it's probably going to go when you look at who might start against Everton. But again, let me know, what do you think? Would you bring Thomas Partey straight back in right now, or do you think, like me, maybe you give him another week really to properly prepare, get him back in at the weekend, and then go from there? Elsewhere, when you look at who might start in this game against Everton, I don't really see too many changes. You've got the game on Saturday that you've got to take into account, so maybe you look at the fullback situation. Do you bring in a Tomiyasu? Do you bring in a Tierney? Do you rest players a little bit ahead of that weekend game? I'm not sure. I think maybe Tomiyasu. I think maybe you go with Zinchenko again on tomorrow night, and there's going to come to a point this season. I think again it's the fact that you've got Europa League really now looming large. I think that's when we're going to start really seeing the rotation. I think up to that Europa League game, you're probably Arteta's just going to go with what he's gone for. So it'll be Wednesday night, same team, Saturday, same team, and then the rotation starts from next week. There is the temptation to maybe do a couple of things for this week's two games, but I just think he'll probably go, as long as no one's carrying something that we don't know about. I think you're probably just going to go with what's got Arsenal to this point in the Premier League, and then start the rotation once the Premier League gets up and running. So there is the opportunity maybe to do something at fullback, but other than that, I think the team pretty picks itself when you look at who's going to start. So I think it'll probably be Ramsdale in goal. You're going to have White, Saliba, Gabriel, I think Zinchenko. Like I said, I've got a feeling it'll be Jorginho, Xhaka and Odegaard again is that midfield three on Wednesday night, and then probably Saka, Trossard and Martinelli. I just don't see too many changes from the game against Leicester. I think and he'll stick with that, and then maybe make a couple of changes against Bournemouth at the weekend, and then really start shaking things up a little bit once the Europa League gets underway. And Sporting Lisbon, now that is going to be an interesting game. 5:30, I think kickoff time has been confirmed for the game in Lisbon next week, and then 8 o'clock the following Thursday night at the Emirates. Hector Bellerin, of course, coming back. That will be a nice little sort of narrative behind those two games. Marcus Edwards as well, ex-Tottenham player, doing very well at Sporting Lisbon. So there's a few sort of interesting storylines bubbling away ahead of those games, but we'll talk about them as we approach it. Gabriel, before I go today, I just wanted to talk about Gabriel. I think he's been so good since the World Cup. You look at, I think Saliba's taken a lot of headlines, and rightly so this season, because he's been so good, and the fact that Arsenal waited so long to get him in, we're all eagerly awaiting to see what sort of performances Saliba was going to put in. He's put in some very good ones. There's no doubt his performance level has maybe dipped as the season's gone on. He's not doing anything wrong, really. He's not poor by any means, but I'm not sure he's quite at the level that he was for those first 3 months when he was just absolutely imperious. But next to him, Gabriel just deserves huge credit for his form this season, especially since he's come back. I think he's been Arsenal's best player since the World Cup. I think he's been absolutely brilliant. Him and Odegaard, potentially. He's just barely put a foot wrong. I think every game I see Gabriel play now, I just like, God, he's absolutely giant of performances. Like I said, I didn't see the whole of the Leicester game, I only saw highlights of it, but again, from speaking to people who were there, who were absolutely raving about Gabriel's performance. The fact that, that Arsenal limited Leicester to I think it was a XG of 0.001 speaks volumes for how well the centre-backs played, and the midfield as well, in limiting the amount of chances that Leicester had. And, there was a start of the season, Gabriel, there was a few errors sneaking in, and he kept getting punished for them as well, and people were sort of pointing the finger a little bit. I remember speaking about him at times, saying he's really got to cut that out if he wants to be top level centre-back. You can't let those little mistakes really creep into your game and become a regular thing, and they were becoming a little bit of a regular thing, but he certainly cut them out now, and he's just putting in top level performances week in, week out. And he's been a fantastic signing for Arsenal. He really has, and he signed a new contract this season as well, so he's committed long term to them. And you speak to people, you speak to like Mikel Arteta whenever you talk about Gabriel, and he talks about not just what he's doing on the pitch on a weekly basis, but what he's doing behind the scenes, and how he's come on, how much of a leader he's become at London Colney, how he's really sort of mastered the English language, worked really hard to do that, and that's helped him become this really leader type figure at Arsenal. He's still so young as well, still so much to come from Gabriel, and I just think he's been a wonderful signing, no doubt about that. He's just getting better and better. He looks so perfectly adapted to playing in the Premier League now, and he's got those leadership skills as well. I wouldn't put it past Gabriel at some point down the line, really, seeing him wear the armband plenty of times. Obviously we've got Martin Odegaard there, and he's not going anywhere anytime soon, hopefully, fingers crossed. But there's definitely leadership material when it comes to Gabriel, and I think he deserves an awful lot of credit for his form this season. He's been absolutely brilliant to watch, and hopefully long may that continue, because that centre-back partnership of Saliba and Gabriel has been the bedrock that this success has been built on by Arsenal this season. If they can stay together for the rest of the season, as they have done so far, then Arsenal are going to have a hell of a good chance of going on and winning this Premier League title. All right, that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Please do, as I said, reply in the comments below with anything you agree with, disagree with, what you want to see on Wednesday night. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you again for all the support you give me on these videos as this channel does turn 3. Happy birthday to the channel, and here's to the next 3 years. Have a great day.